Today we're going to talk about the 15 key principles that you will need to use to make a killer landing page. This is something we used over and over to hook people in, to get people to buy, and it's responsible for over 30 clients growth over the last 12 months. So I'm just going to dive straight into it, not actually spend time on any fluff. Here is the list. You'll see 15 points here. These are all very, very important when you are building a landing page. I'm going to dive into the first 5 because they are really, really important. But if you want access to all of them, you will have to look out for our course that's coming later on. But for now, just dive into what we have here and you're going to learn a lot from it. The first thing we're going to talk about is the visual hierarchy of a landing page. And when I say visual, it's really important to understand that it's not related to just content and not just images, it's everything you actually see in a landing page. And this example is such a good one because it's copy, but it has different sizes as it relates to scale. And you can see that clearly the first thing you read is you, because we know that we have to read from the top. That's just the best practice, but also because it has a specific color and it is bigger, which means that scale is really important for a visual hierarchy. So that's really something I want you to keep in mind, and those are rules you need to apply. So if you want people to take a certain action on your website, make sure that you make what you want people to do bigger. That's the first lesson really in visual hierarchy. But also it's important to make things that are less important smaller. And as we can see here, the actual, meat and paragraph like here, that is much, much smaller. And that is because it's not as important for them to read and take into consideration. When we talk about visual hierarchy, we also have other things we can look at. You got scale we just talked about, but you also have proximity. If you make a button and there's a lot of white space around it, you're signaling to your visitors that it's really important what's here. But if it's all cluttered up on your website and there's a lot of things close to your button, you're basically telling them this is not super important. There's other things to keep in mind. And lastly, you also have contrast. And this one is really important, and a lot of people forget about that. But if you utilize good contrasting, people will take more notice of your specific CTA button. And that's why everyone keeps saying, oh, you need to make your CTA green or orange. But reality is that you just need to make it stand out from the rest of your website. And that's how people can really see it fast. So that's how we look at visual hierarchy, and that's the first lesson. Now let's look at some of the bad examples, because there's certainly a lot of them. Here we have Chase, which a lot of people will know about. Look how cluttered this page is. You have, find the right credit card, learn more, and you also have lock-in right now if you're a current customer, right? But also you can choose what's right for you, and you got 5 different options. You can not even click on them, and then there's more links and so on. It's all over the place. Let's just say that. And the right way to do this is, go back and think about what's the number one action we want people to take. And if we know that there are returning visitors and new customers, then we will want to hide the actions like the login behind a button so we don't have so much space. And we might also say, okay, for new visitors, for new customers, here's a flow for them. So 2 buttons. Once you click those buttons, more options open up to them. So this is definitely too much. Here's another example as well, and it's really quite funny that is actually an architecture and design school, but it's not always easy to do what's right? Here you just see it's way too cluttered. There's no scaling hierarchy here like we talked about before, so it's very important for me to say what is the number one action. There's so much clutter, and remember we talked about proximity here as well, and again they're not doing any white spacing to show what is really important. And then you can take your first step today, but it's so hard to read and it's easy to miss, and then you got all these things you need to fill out, which again makes it so that it feels overwhelming and people don't take action. So these are really, really good examples for how to not do things. You basically want to do the opposite.